On this episode, we're going to work on the International Scout 2 diesel, see if we can get it to do anything. So on the first episode on this, we just walked around, checked it out, showed you guys what it looked like, and now that it's a lot more cleaned up, I got a battery for it. I'll show you that here in a minute. It's kind of a behemoth. Gonna go ahead and put it in there and just turn the key on. We're not gonna try and crank it or anything like that. We're just gonna make sure the electronics come on. I know it probably has some fuel in the tank. I wanna see if it registers. One of the things with diesel is diesel fuel never really goes bad, not like gasoline, because diesel fuel's a light oil actually. The only things you can run into is water in the fuel if it gets into the tank, or sometimes it could actually grow a kind of a bacteria, an algae in the fuel. But I'm gonna pull the fuel filter, take a look at it. It's got two fuel filters actually. The original Nissan fuel filter, and then it has a Raycor, so it's pretty cool. It's got two filters in line. And then, yeah, just kind of go through the steps and see if we can get it to do anything. So here's this massive battery I got for it. It is mighty heavy, so I'm gonna go ahead and huff it up into the engine compartment and hook it up. It's got screw terminals on it. It doesn't have the normal terminals, but yeah, I don't like lifting up batteries. This is going to be kind of annoying. Got the battery in. I'll put the hold down on later. Now let's go ahead and hook up the positive terminal and make sure we don't release any smoke. All right, so no sparks, so that means nothing's on, which is good. Well, we got voltage. Let's go turn the key on and see if it does anything. So one thing, I don't know what all that is. I don't have any keys for this, so I actually need to pull all this apart and get the ignition cylinder out and the door locks out. Bring it to a locksmith and see if I can get some keys made. Well, we got a light came on. It says brakes. Fuel indicator's coming on. It's a little bit above E, so at least there's something there. Yeah, radio clicks. That's fun. Well, that's a start. We have something. See, let me turn the running lights on, see if anything comes on. Oh, the amp gauge dropped just a little bit. Oh, that's on. That's... Neither of those are on. Bulbs are probably bad, or who knows. Oh, running lights are on in the back. They're very dim, but they are on. So like I was showing in the first video, it has this little panel right here for the diesel engine. And it actually has full mechanical glow plugs. So it's got a momentary switch here, and it has what looks like a Ford starter solenoid. But if I tap it, it clicks, so the solenoid is at least working. We'll have to get a test light to see if it is sending voltage to the glow plugs. Who knows if they're good, but we'll see. So we got the dipstick over on this side, and it has oil, so that's good. I need to call around and see if this oil filter is even remotely available. If not, I might have to probably source it online somewhere. And then this guy, if anyone's wondering, this is actually an auxiliary fuel pump. So it doesn't pump when it's running, but what it is a fuel priming pump. So say, you empty the fuel filters to replace the filters. Diesels are very sensitive to air. You can't have any air in the fuel lines or it just will not function. So what you do is when you open up, this is the factory Nissan fuel filter, and then this is that aftermarket Raycor fuel filter, which these are really good, is when you empty it out and drain them and put a new filter in, you sit here and you actually pump on this guy, which I actually hear fuel pumping, so that seems to be working. These can actually cause a lot of problems. Sometimes the O-rings will start leaking and it'll get air into the system and it'll cause a lot of air issues. So let's open up this guy real quick and just take a look. Oh, yep, look, fuel's coming out. Actually, it doesn't look half bad, so that's good. Just gonna go ahead and tighten that down. Now I'm gonna go under the dash and push that fuel stop lever and see if this thing goes back and forth. We gotta make sure that works. If that's sticking, it will not function, which will be kind of a pain, but let's go check. All right, so if I push this guy in, it should cycle that lever. I don't know if you guys can see it, but I can, and it definitely is moving. So that is a plus, so that's good. So we know that works. Now, it might not work inside the pump, but it's very rare I've found on these older diesels with these mechanical pumps that, unless it's been sitting for 30, 40 years, or it had water in the fuel system, a lot of times the diesel, especially the old diesel, which I know this thing's been sitting long enough that it has the old stuff in it, it has pretty good lubricity and it'll just keep everything nicely lubricated and keep it from rusting and sticking. So hopefully we're lucky in that fact. The next thing I want to do is I'm going to get a screwdriver and take this intake boot off of the turbo, make sure it spins free, and then I want to keep it open so if I do get it started and it has any issues, because with diesels you can run into a situation called runaway where either the fuel system sticks or it'll run on its own oil and you can't shut it off. The only way to shut it off is to physically block the intake and starve it of air. So anytime I start an old diesel, I always have the intake open where I can starve it just so it doesn't blow up, because if it runs on, it'll just rev to the moon and something will break, and that's how it'll turn itself off. So let me go get a screwdriver, check the turbo, and yeah, I don't know, maybe see if it'll crank over with the fuel shut off, see how it sounds, see if it builds compression, you can hear it, and then we'll see what happens. Got the boot off of the turbo. The turbo spins nice and free, it feels good. Of course, the second I touch this, that's hose split, so we're gonna have to source some new hose for that. This is not original, like I said, because this was not originally a turbo truck, so somebody did that, and it looks okay, but, you know, kind of expected this stuff would split. But anytime you're doing this, and if you need to shut the air off to the turbo, you want something sturdy, a piece of wood, a piece of metal. You don't want to use cardboard, plastic, anything like that. A rag in there will work, but it might screw up the turbo. You can cause some issues with that. So what I found is an old Volkswagen hubcap, which is metal, that we can go like that and block it off, which would starve it of air and kill the engine if we were to have a problem. Hopefully not. That's never a fun thing. But now what I'm gonna do is, with the fuel shut off, I'm just gonna see if the engine cranks at all. So go ahead and push in the clutch. Make sure it's in neutral. Make sure the fuel stop is all the way out. Turn on the key. It's funny, on diesels I'm so used to turning on the key and having a glow plug cycle, but this doesn't have that. So let's see if it'll crank. Nothing. So I tried to crank and it clicked. So that means that my battery terminals are either loose a little bit, or there's an electrical ground issue to where it's not getting enough electricity. So let's look at the battery real quick. Might need to snug these down a little bit more. I mean, they're snug. I should check to make sure this has voltage. I just got this battery. It's a Reman battery because I didn't want to spend hundreds of dollars on a battery yet, and I've had decent luck with these Reman batteries in the past. Well, I totally just screwed myself. I totally forgot about it, and I clicked in the lock position. So now the ignition is locked. Yeah, that's fun. Looks like I'm going to be pulling out the steering wheel and getting that ignition lock out real quick. Well, it appears I don't have the right bolts for my puller, so I need to go get some bolts to be able to get the steering wheel off, then take this all apart, get the ignition out. I can go get a key made for it, and then I'll also pull a door lock cylinder up. But for now, I got a wire, so let's jump at the battery and see if we can get it to crank over. My goal right now is to get it to crank over, see how it sounds, and build some oil pressure. So I got the starter down there. Go ahead and hook that wire up. Take this guy and touch it to the positive. It sounds pretty good. So another thing by doing that as well is you can heat up the cylinders just a little bit, because diesels run off of compression. So let's see, I'm kind of nervous. I don't know, should we try? Push the fuel stop in. I haven't glowed it though. It's a bit warm, so see if it even does anything. Okay. What I'll probably end up doing at some point here soon is cracking an ejector line. I mean, if it fires up, I won't. But if it doesn't want to do anything, I'll crack an ejector line, see if there's any air in the fuel. But let's give it about 5 seconds of glow, see if that does anything. So go ahead and take this guy and press it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We'll give it 8 seconds. And then take the jumper. So now, let's see if we're getting fuel at the injectors, because that would be a big thing. All right, I just cracked one injector, got that one right there. So let's bump it over and see if it spits any fuel. All right, so we're not spitting any fuel, so that means we're not getting fuel out of the fuel pump, or when the filters are clogged, or that rack inside isn't allowing it to fully engage. So let me do some digging. Let's see what we can find out. So what I did is I cracked the fuel line coming into the stock filter and used the primer pump, pumped it a little bit, some came out, put that on, cranked it on the output side, pumped it a little bit, some came out, and then I closed it all together, pumped it up, it got some good resistance in it, and then I cracked all these lines. So see if I can show you. It's not the best pressure, but I am getting a little bit of spurts of fuel from each of them. So we'll see if that's enough to be able to pop the injectors. And that's how you bleed air out of these diesel fuel lines. You just pop you don't pop them off. You loosen them up enough to where fuel can escape by it, crank it over until fuel starts spitting out, and hopefully that'll be enough to be able to get fuel into the injectors. And then there's also bleed-offs on the injectors, the returns, which will sometimes allow air to get by as well. But it's primarily getting it filled with fluid, because if it's airlocked, it won't work. So let's go ahead and tighten all these guys down and see if it does anything. Okay, can engage the starter again, see if it makes any noise. And I'm just making sure to not over crank the starter. I don't want to burn it out. These diesels take a lot of juice to crank. So I'm not really expecting it to fire yet. But, if it smokes a little bit out the tailpipe, or, makes a little bit of noise, then we'll give it some glow plugs. All right, let's just give it a little bit of glow plug, see if it does anything. That was about 8-9 seconds, I think. Yeah, it's hard to say if we're even getting enough fuel into the injectors. It might not even be enough pressure to pop them, so I hope it's not the injection pump. That would be kind of annoying, but I can always send it out and get it rebuilt. But yeah, well, there's always the adventure of getting a vehicle that's been sitting for a long time started. And honestly, who knows if the glow plugs even work? It's hard to say. I do need to test all those. Oh, how about that? All right, let's give it some more glow plugs. So I'm gonna do 10 seconds. Okay, I gave it 12. Look at that, it did something. All right, let me give it some more glow plugs. Obviously this thing is very sensitive to glow plugs, just like the 6.2 diesel in my Chevy. No glow plugs, that thing will not start. All right, there you go, some more glow plugs. Huh, I'll be darned. Well, it's doing something, which is awesome. Okay, let me set you guys up because I've been holding you the whole time. All right, I got you guys all set up so I can use two hands. I want to see if I can crank it and fire the glow plugs at the same time because I can reach in. Okay. I would like to be able to reach the throttle, give it just a little bit of juice when I get it to start. So I was giving it full throttle when it started up and it didn't want to run super well. So probably need to get some more fuel for it. Definitely need the fuel filters to be done. But hey, at least it fired up and it sounds pretty decent. All right, so here's where we're at with the Scout. I went ahead and got the old ignition out. I found this one in a box, but it's not the right one. It won't stay in place, but it at least turns, so I can start from inside. I found a place in town and got a new filter element for the Raycor, but I had to special order the factory Nissan fuel filter and an oil filter. So next week I'll do an oil change on it and change that factory fuel filter. But let's see what she does. Push the fuel stop in, give her some glow. And look at that, it runs. The tech even works. So I'm gonna see if I can pull it to the other side of the yard. So I'm pulling it out. It does not have power steering, and the steering box has a million turns. Oh, I hear the turbo. Nice. There we are. The brakes really don't work all that well. There's only about half the brakes, so I'm gonna have to rebuild that. But let's look under the hood real quick. And there it is, idling. Well, I'm gonna say that is one heck of a win. I picked up this 78 International Scout 2 factory diesel. I think it's been sitting for probably 25 or 30 years, and we got it running. We even drove it around the yard, around the property. And the turbo spools, sounds really good. The fuel definitely is old, so I'm gonna have to either siphon out the fuel that's in it or just add a bunch of fuel with some fuel additives. And I want to run diesel purge through the injection system, and that cleans up the injection pump and cleans up the injectors and whatnot, makes it run a little bit smoother. And then change the oil. I'm gonna have to get tires for it, fix the brakes, and we'll probably be driving this here pretty soon, actually. It's super exciting. Anyways, I'm gonna go ahead and end the episode here because we got a lot done, and I really appreciate it. And thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you on the next one.